Wow, I'm so excited to have this person in this interview in the Academy with me. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Ashley Dudarenok.
Hey, Dion, phenomenal to be here. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, I appreciate you making time. And you can see the smiles on our faces because we've known each other for a while. And now we're both doing crazy things, right? And for the record, people, I reached out to Ashley before her post about being in Forbes magazine, all right? So as far as we're concerned, we're a couple of mates that met in Singapore that have just stayed in touch. Now she's this big deal, right? I'm like, please come and do an interview with us. And she's like, no, I'm not like that at all.
Very happy to contribute.
I appreciate it. Ashley, please introduce yourself. Tell us about the companies that you started and tell us what you do in China. I can write all the rest of the stuff. I want as many of your words as I can get from you today.
Absolutely. So I came to mainland China when I was actually 17 years old, and I came to mainland when it was going through a huge digitalization. So the China we know today, or at least some people know that side of China, which is very digital, very fast, very advanced when it comes to, again, technology, AI, and importantly, implementation of all those things, not just theory, right? So that China was just being built, right? When I landed in 2005, 2006, people barely had phones, and suddenly everybody had smartphones. Cash, right? People never went through credit cards. They went direct to mobile payments. Social media, there was nothing first. And then we basically had a lot of local and international players. Yeah. Back then in 2006, there was Google in China, there was Facebook in China, and there were local platforms, right? So basically, my professional expertise, because your question was, what kind of businesses do you run, right? I focus on the mainland China. One side of it is digital marketing. So essentially we work with international brands that want to capture Chinese consumers and build the community. And the second part is consulting. Specifically right now, we work with a lot of tech companies and multinationals that want to go through digitalization, learning from China, because they've done it. And the version of the future that they are building is quite impressive in some areas, for example, like live streaming or extended reality technology. So many multinationals and global tech companies want to learn from China journey. So this is what I do professionally. And extremely excited, again, to be here, share my expertise and experience. I know that, Dion, you're doing a lot of phenomenal things with people when it comes to mindset, when it comes to empowering, training them. And we also met at a convention of like-minded individuals. And I've studied psychology for 5-6 years. I absolutely love this mindset. I absolutely believe in the power of community. And this is beautiful that you are building your community in the Pacific way.
And I really appreciate you saying that, because when Ashley and I met, it was a speakers convention, right? And so you were engaged at the time, now married. Congratulations, by the way. I saw that post come through. And I always listen to who's around, because when you're in Asia, and people know me, I'm not that subtle. When you're in Asia, there's this element of fakeness. Like there's this element of, the biggest fear in Asia is the fear of losing face. You don't let people know you're struggling, all that sort of stuff. So my mental health stuff that I was doing was very hush-hush. It was actually quite taboo. I couldn't come out and go, I'm going to help people who are struggling with their mental health. Everyone's like, we don't struggle with mental health. So there's always this element of fakeness. There's always this element of projecting your highest value when you meet, So when you meet in a lot of Asian cultures, your family name, if it's a big name, it's coming from one of the dragon families. Everyone knows who that name is, right? And then your financial net worth has more value than your value as a human being in lots of different areas. And so when we first met, it was like two people that know how to function in this environment that sort of mess. You're one of those as well. You're someone that's just yourself and you're just enjoying. And I was doing the protecting woman, self-defense stuff. And I remember showing Ashley the difference between how you think about a problem. I said, hey, Ashley, the biggest thing is everyone thinks self-defense is about how tough you are. It's how smart you are. And I showed you the little thumb break, and I still remember your words. And you said, I like that, because it altered the way of thinking, of the way of looking at something else. And then from that, I went, okay, this lady, she's clever. She's watching what's going on. Like, you're a happy, smiley person, you get on with everyone, but I saw you watching. I was like, this lady's smart. So I started following you from there, because I know nothing about the Chinese market. So where we are now with the academy, that's the history of Ashley and I. Her credibility is teaching people how to operate in the Chinese environment. What is the start point? Let's keep this two sides, individual entrepreneurs and organizations. So what is the start point for someone like one of my mentoring students that's a speaker, or author, or a trainer, has a product or service and wants to enter the Chinese market? What's the start point? What's the thinking first, please?
Right. I think you need to appreciate that China is as complex as Europe. So essentially, it's not one country. It's not that you are suddenly tapping into New Zealand or you're tapping into, I don't know, Poland. It's just very, very different, because mainland China has the south and the north that have extremely different cultures, not just dialects, but even in terms of, let's say, wealth. Wealth is primarily in the south. Majority of people live in the south. And it's actually a big fight which city is considered to be south, like after which river is it south and is it north,
gotcha.
Right? I think that what we need to understand is that there are many provinces, there's many cities of municipalities and large cities. Some of these cities have 20-30 million people, so they could as well be countries. And of course they have their unique culture, their unique way of doing things, their slang. China has a lot of dialects. China has 56 national minorities, so it's a complex organization. It's a complex place, just like Europe. You don't just tap into Europe, or you want to have an opportunity in Europe. You choose your target market very clearly, and then you see how can you offer something of value into XYZ market or target audience. And for China, this is extremely important. If we are individual entrepreneurs, if we're speakers, if we're trainers, we need to understand that we cannot capture the whole of China. And my favorite, and I put this here, kind of thinking is, some people say, oh, if I just sold something, for $1 to every Chinese, I will become a billionaire. You will never sell anything for $1 to a billion Chinese, just like you will never sell anything to 7 billion people in the world, right? Because it doesn't appeal to them. So segmentation and really understanding what part of China, what specific segment within it are we after, and how do we add value is very important. The second thing is, of course, understanding that China has definitely progressed quite a bit when it comes to consumer demands, to the, if you are, let's say, a psychologist and you want to teach them some concepts and you still think that they are wrapped in those, concepts of 90s and 80s, you will be surprised. People are extremely advanced. If you sell physical product, they're extremely demanding. They're the most sophisticated customers in the world. When it comes to any app, I've had so many people coming to me and saying, oh, there's a, like, I'm gonna launch an app. It's gonna be the best, let's say, meditation app out there. I was like, are you guys serious? We're talking about a country that virtually, for the majority of the world, 3 to 5 years ahead when it comes to technology implementation. They have enough apps. Actually, they have apps within apps that you don't even need to download on your phone in order to operate. And this is the way that, it's completely different. So you coming into this market need to understand that they are definitely already not Chinese that haven't seen anything and they just want a Western face or an international product, and whatever you bring to this market is going to be great because it worked in some other place of this world, because this is very often not the case. In most cases, you need to tailor. You need to tailor technology, you need to tailor physical product, you need to tailor your angle when you teach, when you tell a story, to level up with what's happening with the actual consumer. And I believe that disconnect is about 10 years. When I speak with somebody in Europe and they tell me about what they think about China or Chinese consumers, sometimes it's shocking because they still say, oh, but all the cheap products in Europe come from China. So their demands for quality cannot be so high. And I said, that's because all these, low quality stuff, they're selling to Europe because you guys want it cheap. But in the country, of course, there are different tiers and layers of a development of cities, but the top tier cities, they go for highest quality products, and both from international and in-house local producers or, let's say, program creators. etc. So these, I think, are very important concepts that everybody shall know.
Absolutely brilliant, because we've both run businesses overseas, and there's a Western mindset that says we are the best in the world, and we go to another people's country and all the rest of it. We apply our understanding to that people to make it work for us. Generally not very well received at all. History will tell us that. Then there's the Pacific way that Kiwis have always done this, and South Pacific people have always done this. And why I came to you first is, before we go into anyone else's house, anyone else's country, we always respect tangata whenua, the local people of the land. And normally what we do when we arrive is we look to make contact firstly with a guide. And so I've made contact with you. You're a guide to understanding this, but you're not an expat that's just rocked up to China. You speak the language, you write the language, you know that you're part of the culture. It's not like you're a Russian that understands Chinese culture. Like, you live within Chinese culture, you're brought up within that culture, so you're part of it. So you're the guide. And then the next stage of the Pacific way is a guide to a chief. And then so when we're running around the villages in the South Pacific, or even in Indonesia or Philippines or anywhere else, we're in someone else's country, respect that country. Find a guide to meet the chief. And then you sit down with the chief of that village, you introduce yourself and what you do, and you ask that chief for their advice and their permission and their boundaries. And then you work with that chief to find out what do you want? This is what I have. Is that of any benefit to you? And that's the well-mannered, correct way to do it that we've always been taught here in the Pacific Islands. So I can find you on LinkedIn. A lot of people can find you, though. Heaps of people find you now. When it's now time to go, let's pick a province. I've been to Shanghai, Beijing, Hangzhou, Suzhou, and Xi'an. My wife and I, we did a tour of China. So if we just let's pick a province in the south that's quite well known, so we can do a little case study here.
Guangdong.
Which is it?
Guangdong, yeah, Shenzhen and Guangzhou, right? They are in a province which is called Guangdong.
Okay, so we're looking at going into that market. We meet you. What's then the start point? You do an assessment. So what do you have? And then we're looking for what value that then applies to that area. So for me, I see as we advance in technology, we lose humanity. As we advance in artificial intelligence, we actually lose our own intelligence. So my angle is always, man, you can be as flash and rich and as technological as you like, but if you can't handle your emotions and you can't handle this side of things, that's what I'm looking for. But there's no appetite for that now, like suicide and all that. You can't say suicide in Asia very often, right? Unless it's Malaysia, because they're struggling. So now that I found a guide, we're now going to look at the province. Now it's the assessment of what do you have and where is the value. Are there organizations and networking places where you can come in like a waiting room to that province and introduce yourself? How does that process work?
Absolutely. It all depends on the product. Like, what are we bringing into the market, right? Is it a physical product? Is it some educational, let's say, product? Is it us as contributors and potential bloggers, potential experts to teach in that market? Different rules apply, different industry standards. If it is a physical product or technology, it's very straightforward. Of course, there are organizations in each province, and of course industrial organizations too. For example, you are in I do not know, mobile phones, then there's definitely electronics association that you can speak with. If it's any kind of consumer product also, but also there are government, provincial and city-wide organizations. China actually works very similar to Singapore, and that's a huge misconception around the world, where people, again, I come from a communist country, so I can comment. I was born in Soviet Union. A lot of people have this misconception that, oh, China is a communist country, everything is corrupt, government doesn't help you, and basically it's like Wild West. In reality, it works very similar to Singapore, when each city and each province has KPIs given by its central government. China is much, much bigger than Singapore, so of course it comes with a different set of challenges and you know, their own kind of way, but they are given KPIs and they're competing with each other. So all provinces in the south want to attract entrepreneurs. They want to help you succeed, because if they fail, if they don't meet their KPIs, then they will not be promoted to the next whatever stage.
Let this be a lesson for those in the South Pacific and Western culture. We come from a culture where we actually enforce KPIs. You can't just cruise through, your normal stuff and try and hit your KPIs. In Asia, you got to hit your KPIs or you're out, mate.
You're out, mate. You're absolutely out. And that creates a culture when it comes to working with government, strikingly different from 20 years ago, when it was just about, oh, I'm here and I'm here to collect, papers and maybe sometimes occasional bribe. Yep. And, you come to me to ask for favors. That definitely existed in all, Asian, I believe, regions and many regions around the world. In Soviet Union, that was very, very common, etc. But right now it's strikingly different. There is a big fight on corruption. Yes, this happens on one side, but at the same time, this KPI driven, performance driven kind of system forces government officials to actually be involved, engaged, and help move things forward. So the country every 5 years sets out a plan, and they announce it. If you want to know where China is going, there's no mystery, there's no secret. Every 5 years, there's a 5-year plan. Actually, in Soviet Union, we also had those 5-year plans that would be announced to say, okay, we are here right now in 5 years in, for example, agriculture, in technology, in, I do not know, salaries and equality and in all these different areas in environment protection. We want to be somewhere else.
Nice.
So these KPIs are actually given by the government. Plus, they have a 10-year vision. The vision, where do we want to be in 10 years? So these are given.
No one knows this. Why don't people know this? Like, I know this because I'm stalking you on LinkedIn and I follow your page. You release these reports on your LinkedIn page. I download them and I read them and I go, right, entrepreneur, education, youth, I file that away because I know I've got those programs. And then as I build, I know at some point I'm going to go, Ashley, I need to hire you. I have this, which matches that KPI, which is part of that vision. Now what's the next step? So just being aware, first of all, don't be racist and don't judge like a flipping bigoted moron. Like, China's not where you go to the market to get a Gucci knockoff. Look at the holographic technology they got in the cities now. These things are jumping out of buildings at you almost, in their marketing. So that's the first point. Second point is then being very specific whereabouts in China you want to go to by province. And then if you can align that KPI, that vision all the way through, and you can find a guide like Ashley or a business to go and do that, then you can start, you're going to be welcomed as opposed to finding hard to at least have the conversation. And when you say it's similar to Singapore, that's what I love about Singapore. And it's the opposite of New Zealand. If I put my hand up right now, which I have for 12 years, and said, I have a solution to youth suicide, everyone's like, whatever. You stand up in Singapore and go, hey, I've got an idea. Woomfa. Your whole life in Singapore is constant meetings and makan and sharing ideas to monetize, to grow. Everyone has this insane, well, it's not insane, the survivalist desire to get something, to grow it, to make their life better, because a lot of it's coming from poverty, right? And so that desire, that push through to get ideas and get access to things, Western culture doesn't understand that. So now you're telling us not only is China leap years ahead as far as evolving their technology and their mindset, they actually have clear KPIs, clear vision stuff to make it easier for people like us to actually come here and say, hey, you're looking for this in this amount in this time frame. I've got something I think might be a match. Let's talk. So when we sit down for that, let's talk, where do we do that? How do we do that?
Right. So before the pandemic, that would be reaching out to, again, you can reach out to associations, you can reach out to provincial governments, etc. And because they are incentivized by KPIs, they will help. And you can actually go out to 3 provinces they are nearby, or within the same city to 3 different cities, or even, are you ready for this, different districts within a city. They all compete with each other. So for example, if in, let's imagine Guangdong, right, we have a city called Shenzhen, and in Shenzhen there is Bao'an district and there is some other CBD district. So CBD, because everybody wants to have office at CBD, might not give you such a great offer. They may say, oh yeah, you are the business of our strategic interest, or maybe not, but if you are, we're going to give you a free office for 3 years and we're going to give you a tax break. Yeah, but if you go to another one, they will say, oh my God, they offered you 3, we're going to give you 5. 5 years. I mean, I'm making this up, but I'm just telling you that it is
that KPI competitive mindset. I mean, that's huge opportunity if you have something of value and you're legit, right?
Yeah. You need to be aligned with their strategic goal, right? And again, strategic goal is given by the government. Then it is moved on to the provincial governments, then to the cities, and of course, apart from the government structure, it's also carried over to tech giants because they go and innovate in these areas. Then all the corporates that are working local and international, like if China is talking about common prosperity and you're Coca-Cola, I'm sorry, whether you like it or not, you need to be a part of that conversation because China is going towards common prosperity. There's nothing wrong with that, and you need to participate. And then it translates to smaller businesses and consumers, of course. So that's how it operates. So you need to really identify whether whatever you have to offer actually makes an impact. If it is aligned with what the country is creating, you are going to have access to potential government funding, any other commercial funds that, for example, tech giants that are completely divorced from the government funding.
Excuse me.
Actually, bless you. Actually providing so funding as well, and also some of the perks such as tax breaks or free offices, etc., etc. And then the next step would be, if you are clear on what the offering is, you get yourself a consultant that sets up a legal entity in the country. So
I know someone I can recommend.
Yeah, sometimes it's even free. The government can fully cover the cost of setting it up. And then once you have a legal entity, you essentially start working. But of course, there are, and that's what I wanted to mention, some restrictions. For example, you've just now mentioned, Dion, that some of the audience that we have here today don't have a physical product, but for example, they have an education program, or they're a speaker. So you've got a few barriers, obviously, the mindset, the language, all these things. Plus, if it's education, China is very protective of who you're educated. If it is K-12, if it's kids, then this is likely not going to be okay because you're not speaking Chinese. They don't know what you're teaching, right? What exactly you're trying to put into those minds. Previously, there was a huge sector, K-12 sector, where you could, for example, hire a teacher from New Zealand who could directly teach English, for instance.
I remember meeting them when we came to China. There was all this, where are you guys from? We were teachers. We're hired to come over and teach English.
Yeah. So some of them still, there's a huge number of those in the country. But now they become more and more qualified. Previously, you are a foreign looking person and suddenly you are a teacher, which of course was bizarre. Right now, China is at a different level. So right now they have all these, just like any other country, have restrictions saying, hey, if you want to be a teacher, you actually need to be a qualified professional that can do it.
Yes.
Yeah, not just
it's just not someone that can speak about English, because I'll be honest, the teacher I met, their English wasn't actually that good. Now, I really want to respect your time. Like you've just blown up in the world. You've got this amazing energy about you anyway, Ash. You just have, that's what I always remember, is just your energy and your smile and how sharp you were, right? So we've got 3 minutes left. We stole Ashley. She's super busy. But you have a course. Quickly tell us about your course, because we're going to make your course available here in the Academy. So when my people get to a certain point where they're like, I want to look at China. I think I've got something I can bring to China. You've actually developed this course so that someone like us can go and actually do the course to get this education first. Tell us about the course.
Absolutely. We have a couple of courses that are focused primarily on entering the market or operating in the market. I would say 90% of them are for those that are already in the market and they want to do it better. For example, consumers are changing all the time. Platforms are changing all the time. E-commerce environment is changing all the time. And you want to stay on top of all that with actionable kind of insights and, be better. So 90% of the courses are about that. If you're just entering the market, there's 1 or 2 courses that also help you with that to understand, okay, before I go in, what are the steps? What do I need to prepare to actually, come in? But I would like to also mention, if you guys are interested or seeking advice, drop me a message. My LinkedIn DMs are open, so you don't need to connect with me or follow me in order to send me a message. Send it over and I'm going to pass it on to my team. They are very happy to, answer some of the questions via email and support you, because it's an exciting market, but I also want to make sure that it's not, you're clear that it's not for everyone. It is a very peculiar opportunity that requires adjusting a lot of things. So it's not a copy paste, and whether or not somebody is ready for China, it is the first step to realize am I ready? And if I want to get ready, what needs to be done? And then already step 2 is, okay, how do I go about doing it? What we can all do, no matter whether we're going to China or not, what we can all do, and I believe this is also very much aligned with the Pacific way, we can all learn from each other. Yes. And especially given, you know, today when we have such a agitated geopolitical situation globally, I believe that what China, at least in my personal view, never lost, even if they disagree with you, and this is their traditional philosophy, even if I disagree with what you are saying or how you're managing stuff, I can still learn from you because there are things that you are doing right or better than me, or, you know, and China doesn't in this situation lose the ability to learn from, let's call it the West. But sometimes the West shuts itself with this information or, you know, this idea and this mindset, and we in reality prevent ourselves from learning from China. No, we don't need to agree with everything, but there are things to learn. So I believe whether you are going to China or not, what we can all learn is share with each other, become better, and of course, focus on what is actually important. We are all human beings. We are right now transforming to a very interesting new age and life, call it metaverse, extended reality.
I'm with you on that one.
And and this transformation can only be successful when we work together and when we shape this future together. So I'm extremely excited.
Oh, thank you so much for coming in. It's brilliant to be able to bring one of my global contacts into the academy. We've got this hashtag globally local. You know, down at the local level, we need to be able to make humanity a global community. So now I've pulled you in from our global network. That's going to help one of my local kids, you know, when they're developing their product. Very last thing, I'm going to be really cheeky on us is give us a pick for something that China needs right now. If you're going to say, Dion, if you've got this that focuses on that, I would be focusing on this. Give us one pick, please.
China needs local, exciting, in-body, on-body products. So physical products like something with Hanukkah, honey, but in-body, on-body, manufactured somewhere outside of China with an interesting story that has a significant health benefit, which is in line with Chinese understanding of medicine. For example, watermelons in China.
You're going to give us something hard, Ashley. We've got so many of those things in New Zealand that you can only get in New Zealand that has a spiritual story attached to it, and then we'll come to you. Awesome. 谢谢，再见. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Dion. It was such a pleasure, guys, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Bye-bye.